What does the Age of Krakoa mean for everyone's favorite Canadian knucklehead? Well, let's hop into the pages of Wolverine issue number 1 from Benjamin Percy and find out together, shall we? So, this big new premiere issue actually features 2 brand new stories for the price of 1, so let's not waste any time and get right to it. Story the first begins with a little in media res. Wolverine has been horribly beat to shit, and all around him he sees the unmistakable dead bodies of his X-Force teammates. How did they die? Well, he killed them, of course. The big problem is Wolverine can't remember why he did that. In fact, he can't remember much of anything right now. It seems that comics' most favorite amnesia case is coming down with another case of amnesia. Flash back a couple days and things couldn't be more different. Wolverine is teaching wilderness survival to a bunch of the kids on Krakoa, and to the untrained eye, you could say he was playing hide and seek and having a lot of fun. Why, to round out his day, Logan flirts up a storm with X-Force teammate Jean Grey and then pounds back some cheap hooch with longtime friend and captain of the Marauder, Kate Pryde. Yeah, it would seem that Krakoa has been pretty damn good to Wolverine. He's got a roof over his head, friends that love and care about him, he's truly content, and thanks to Kitty, he now has a new mission to do too. You see, the Marauder has been helping transport all the mutant wonder drugs to all the countries that recognize Krakoa as its own sovereign nation, but there's a problem. Despite their best efforts, some of the materials they use, namely the petals, have gone missing. You see, in the hands of Xavier, these amazing Krakoan petals can be used to create life-saving medicines that cure Alzheimer's and turn back the clock of aging, but in the hands of the dangerous drug cartels can be turned into incredibly powerful narcotics. It's because of this CIA agent Jeff Bannister, who looks like an unmade bed and also like the greatest Jeff Bridges character never played, has been called in to investigate a brutal cartel slaying. It would seem that these cartel guys were making a dangerous new street drug known as pollen, which when taken causes an amazing euphoria state. The weird thing is, though, is that these drug lab workers weren't killed in a normal way. No, they all seem like they killed themselves. Furthermore, we discovered that Agent Bannister actually has a sick daughter stricken with leukemia who's on the waiting list for the mutant wonder drugs right now, so naturally he takes cartels stealing petals and turning them into narcotics very seriously when those very same things could be used to help save his daughter. Now, it's Sage who manages to trace a bunch of these stolen petals to Russia, which makes a lot of sense considering that the Russian government is the only one that has been openly antagonistic to Krakoa recently. But for once, the culprits here don't actually seem to be the historically oppressive Russian government. Instead, the perpetrators seem to be the Order of X, a human cult that worships the mutants like gods. And while there are many mutant-worshipping cults all over the world, everyone seems to do their worship a little differently. This particular Russian branch of the Order of X decides to take the pollen as a sacrament and decides to also try and eat the members of X-Force, feeling that if they drink their blood and bring their mutant genes into them, then they can become stronger, better than humanity. This means that X-Force needs to wade on in and get their hands dirty, both to save themselves and to try and end the threat. What's crazy, though, is that they don't actually need to hurt these guys too bad, as it seems that the pollen drugs they're taking have been tainted. Wolverine, using his amazing nose, decides to trace the drugs back to the person who sold them, a Russian gangster who has his own horror story to tell. It would seem that everyone selling pollen right now, whether they want to or not, is forced to do business with the Flower Cartel, a mysterious organization headed by a powerful psychic known as the Pale Girl, a woman with a penchant for having people mutilate and kill themselves who displease her. Now, this is where things get interesting. Agent Bannister and his bosses jump to the conclusion that if the Krakoan mutants are selling their legal drugs, then they must also be selling the illegal ones too. They decide to get together a sting operation to try and catch the mutants in the act. Around the same time, Wolverine and his team are dispatched to deal with the Flower Cartel. It's heavily implied that the Pale Girl had gotten inside Wolverine's mind, messed with it, and got him to turn on his friends. That means that when Bannister and the rest of the Law show up, they find an amnesiac Wolverine covered in blood. And it's on that note right there the first story comes to a close and where the second story begins. At some point, Wolverine was chilling on Krakoa having himself a great old time when old foe Omega Red comes through one of the portals, covered in blood and asking for asylum. Naturally, Logan wants to tell this guy to take a very long walk off a very short pier, but it's Magneto who steps on in and says, hey, new nation, new rules. If Omega Red wants to come here and plead his case, you have to let him. Naturally, Logan doesn't like the idea, saying that Omega Red is a heartless psycho killer and that it's only a matter of time before he kills again, because, well, he has to kill again to stay alive. Magneto says that all the same things can be said about Wolverine himself, and that if he's going to throw stones, he better have some evidence first. I mean, after all, he is part of Krakoa's own CIA and X-Force, so, you know, do your job, buddy. Omega Red, for better or worse, is a mutant in need, and all that blood he was covered in was mostly his own, if you can believe it. Wolverine decides to investigate, and it takes him all the way to Paris. Wolverine finds Omega Red's car, and it's filled with dead bodies. Red says that he didn't actually kill them, that they were dead before he got there, and that he actually hasn't been draining the life force from any living person the last little bit, only farm animals. He's turned over a new leaf like Wolverine, and he should be given a second chance. Wolverine still doesn't believe Red, and as such decides to follow his movements in Paris. This takes him to a rather creepy underground nightclub staffed entirely by vampires. The vampires want to drink Wolverine real bad because, as we discover this issue, his blood is a very rare delicacy, blood type E as in endless, completely free of infection, able to be given to any donor, and also damn near endless thanks to his own healing factor. Wolverine gets drugged by the vampires, but is saved by a French vampire hunter. It would seem that while humanity is busy dealing with the rise of a new mutant nation and everything that comes along with that, the vampires have used this opportunity to rebuild their numbers in massive quantities in the catacombs under Paris. Omega Red swears he was just defending himself against some vampires, and Logan, not wanting to leave anything unfinished and wanting a little payback on the vampires that almost drank him, decides to join force with this vampire hunter. Together they go deep into the catacombs to try and cull some of the numbers from Vampire Nation before things get fully out of hand. Sadly though, our heroes end up getting overwhelmed and the vampire hunter gets taken hostage. Wolverine is only able to get her back by making a deal to give up some of his own blood. Why, it almost seems like that was the plan all along. That very special one-of-a-kind blood is brought to the vampire's leader, Vlad Dracul, which manages to give him some brand new powers never seen before. Now he can walk in the daylight. And we discover that Omega Red was actually working for Dracula all along in exchange for a synergizer, meaning that he won't have to kill all the time, but that he still might just do it anyway for fun. Also, now Vampire Nation has their own sleeper agent inside Krakoa. And so that was Wolverine issue number 1, everybody, and Benjamin Percy gives you a lot of comic in this comic. One that I feel will definitely be rewarding if you're reading all the other X-Men books, but also not a necessity if you're not. This is also a really nice little sequel/sister book to X-Force, which Percy is also writing. We got at least 2 really interesting storylines all starting up at once. I love the idea of Krakoa having this weird ripple butterfly effect through all these other communities throughout the Marvel Universe. I dig that Wolverine's blood is this highly prized thing amongst vampires. I dig that with Krakoa's many shady activities, they're now actually getting blamed for bad stuff that they didn't actually do just because it all kind of tracks. Overall, I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. I think Wolverine is in good hands with Percy, and I'm interested to see where he's going to go from here.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.